Hey, Grant.
Yeah, Betty?
I have an idea for another Coffee and a Mat video.
You do?
I do.
What's that?
You know how our last video we covered trails, what's involved in building them and maintaining them?
Yeah.
I think we should do our next one on getting out on the trail. What's involved in preparing your gear, your clothes, just basic stuff like that.
That's a good idea.
Because I thought of it.
So, who do we talk to about that? Let's see. Yes.
I
got
know.
it.
Yeah,
Me too. Should we go talk to them?
I think we should.
Come on, let's go.
Let's go.
Hey, today we are with Rick Spicer. Rick is the equipment buyer, manager, and part owner of Pack-Rat Outdoor Center in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He's the founder and organizer of the Brujah Bushwhack, which is an adventure race with a twist. You can check it out at brujahbushwhack.com. Rick is certified by the American Mountain Guides Association as a single-pitch climbing instructor. He's also certified in wilderness first aid. He is a wilderness skills instructor and teaches land navigation, survival, and primitive skills classes. Rick has been a climber for 25 years and climbs primarily in the Teton and Cascade ranges. He has also made several trips to climb in the Cordillera Blanca range in Peru and has trekked quite a bit between Patagonia and Colombia. Thanks for joining us, Rick.
It's good to be here. Yeah, happy to do it.
Someone wants to go hiking or on adventures and they don't know where to start.
Sure.
What to do? How would you
Right.
recommend they start?
Well, sure. I would biasly tell them to come to the Pack-Rat to start. Right. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. But in all seriousness, like that's why Pack-Rat exists. People can come here and ask questions all day long, and it doesn't cost them a dime. Right. We're happy to spend time with folks, get them pointed in the right direction. Whether that means they're trying to do a local trail at Devil's Den, or whether they're trying to get ready to go do something much larger like the AT, the PCT, or maybe go overseas and do something. And that's one of the things I like about my job is getting to work with a diverse group of folks, everything from people who are just getting started and don't really have much knowledge of how to prepare themselves to people that are really experienced and they kind of know what they need. They're just trying to get a little bit more information. So
You see the full spectrum, don't you?
we do, yeah. We have a great community here in Northwest Arkansas.
So, say someone's not real close to a gear store. They don't have easy
Sure.
access.
Yep.
And they're trying to research online. Now, just a couple nights ago, I looked up different sites to see what kind of advice they have, and this had a list of the 10 top backpacking tents.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I wouldn't have recommended any of them.
Sure.
So how do you tell a site that's giving good advice from a site that's not giving good advice?
Well, that's really difficult because at the end of the day, many of those sites, you have to remember, it's someone's opinion, right, as to how that they rated it. Some sites out there do a little better job of actually just taking factual information, measurements, and doing sort of more arbitrary testing. And that way, they're just kind of giving you specifications and letting you kind of formulate your own opinion. But it's really hard for people, once they go use a piece of equipment, not to sort of put their own spin into it. Yeah, and that's okay. That's not wrong. I mean, there's value in here listening to someone's opinion, but are they going to be, out there doing similar things to you, or was their end use quite different than yours? So internet research has value, but at the same time, it can be a deep, dark hole that you can go down and seemingly has no bottom to it. But then I would say seek out folks that have real experience. You don't have it's really hard to tell just by reading something online without spending a lot of time, like the sort of legitimacy of someone's experience. There's no substitute for having a one-on-one conversation with a real live person.
That's true.
So
Ultimately, the best option would be just find someone that has more
yeah,
experience.
exactly. Find someone that has a lot of experience. That doesn't mean that has to be in an outdoor store. In fact, oftentimes it's not. It's just someone that can give you honest advice about what it is you're about to get into.
So why would you say outdoor skills or gear would be necessary? I mean, I'm going hiking on a little marked trail. What can possibly go wrong?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of aspects to that, and maybe 9 times out of 10, or maybe 99 out of 100, nothing does go wrong, right? That's the one time, right, that we didn't think about. And there's a lot of people that, they can go hiking infrequently over the course of their life, and they don't really do much to prepare for it, and they're okay. But are you the unlucky one that you did it your very first time and you didn't take the time to get any information or knowledge, and you went out and you had a bad experience? And I think from my perspective is, I guess maybe it's 2 things. One is I want people to be safe, especially younger folks these days, because there's a tendency to sort of think that someone's going to come get you out of trouble if you get into trouble. And while that may be true, they don't think about the risk potentially that they're putting those other people in. So, it's not just you if you're in trouble, if you're caught out somewhere in bad weather or dangerous situation, you're putting other people at risk if they have to come in and help you. You'd rather just get started off on the right foot by starting small, doing things that are appropriate for your experience level, and just working your way up to bigger things. And I'm all for challenging yourself. It's not that I don't recommend that. I think that there's a lot to be said for people to go out and push themselves, but you can do that responsibly.
So what are the advantages of technical clothing as opposed to regular everyday street clothing like cotton?
Sure. Well, again, it's very condition specific. Expensive technical clothing isn't always necessary, depending on the conditions, but often it is of great benefit, and it's a safety thing as soon as we start talking about specifically being in colder weather, right? Because, a lot of folks are probably aware of this, but cotton takes a really long time to dry, so it's a poor choice of wet environments usually, especially wet and cold, get hypothermic. So if you go out and you don't have good waterproof layers, you don't have layers that can keep you warm while they're wet. If you have a pair of jeans on and a cotton t-shirt and those things get wet, not only are you wet and uncomfortable, but you're going to get cool much, much faster because of the wetness in there pulling the energy away from your body. And so having either synthetic layers, or if you like natural fibers like a merino wool type product, those are both really good in order to maintain proper body core temp. I mean, at the end of the day, that's a lot of the classes I teach, that's like the one thing that I preach. Like, you can be out in the woods a long time without food. You can even, depending on the situation, you have to be careful about hydration. Hydration is very important. However, you can still go a couple of days if you have to, if you're not exerting yourself without water. But you can die from exposure very rapidly. And that's all about maintaining body core temp. If you can do things, and then as a caveat, hydration is part of that. You need to be hydrated to maintain body core temp. And so ideally that would be clean, treated water. But at the end of the day, if I don't have a way to treat my water, I'd rather drink the cleanest water I can find out of the creek in order to stay hydrated. Because whatever illness I may get out of the water is probably going to take a whole lot longer to kill me than just dehydration, right? And freezing to death, or dying of heat exhaustion, right, or something like that. So that's why clothing is so important. It's about maintaining body core temp. And then, again, just not to get off subject, That along with hydration are critical skills that I think a lot of people underestimate their importance.
And having proper clothing and wearing it properly makes a bigger difference than a lot
Yeah,
of people realize.
and it's just simple things like, I mean, you can have the best clothing with you, but if you wait too long to put it on, you know plenty of people that like, they start getting cold, but they're moving, and it's like, oh, I don't want to stop, I'll keep going, and they wait until, they're freezing
I've
before
done
they
that.
pull their jacket on. Yeah, we've all done it. Unfortunately, that's how you learn, but you don't wait, to stop and put those layers on until you're freezing, because by then it's going to take, your body has to work so much harder to warm back up again,
To get warm.
right? So you want to stay in that sort of equilibrium level as much as you can, and it's difficult to do. I mean, our bodies can cool and heat off quite rapidly, but that's your knowledge of understanding how your body, and we're all a bit different, but knowing when to shed layers and when to put them back on is important. I mean, it works the other way around. You start out with a bunch of layers on, but it doesn't take very long. You hiking, you got a backpack on, you start sweating, and you need to stop quickly and remove those layers, because you're going to get wet, and then getting wet, you're going to get cold.
There's a fine art to layering.
There absolutely is, yeah.
So what is kind of the basics of layering?
Traditionally, you would start with a base layer system, which is either going to be a synthetic or merino type underwear, and then your insulation layers would go over the top of that, which is typically going to be like fleece products. It could be synthetic insulation, or it could be a down type product. And then over that, and you can sort of think about those insulation layers sort of like your sleeping bag. And then over the top of that goes your waterproof layers, which is sort of like the tent part of the clothing package. And that keeps those insulation layers dry. And if they're dry, they're going to work better. Anytime a product becomes wet, it's not going to insulate as well. So even though synthetic fibers can still insulate while they're wet, they won't insulate as well, and they won't keep you as warm as they would if they were dry. So, and it's not just rain; it's wind as well. The wind can really make things difficult on you staying warm. So. Even if you have if it's not raining, but you've got a rain jacket, it may make a lot of sense to go ahead and put it on if it's windy, because you're going to create a barrier there. Yeah, because the convective heat loss from the wind blowing across your body can chill you quite rapidly.
Especially if you have wet clothes.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. I mean, you can.
It doesn't have to be wet, like soaked wet. It could just be wet from sweat.
It can.
Yeah.
Yep. It doesn't have to be. You're exactly right.
So that's our clothing, footwear. Is that important, and why? As opposed to flip flops and sandals.
Absolutely. I mean, anything that is a product that you wear that has to be fitted, I think, deserves more time and consideration when you're deciding on what to buy or what to take on a particular trip. For instance, like, I think that it makes more sense to spend time picking out a footwear or a backpack than it does a stove. Or something like that, or your water bottles or something, because at the end of the day, yeah, you may not like the way the stove burns or the way the water bottle looks, but they're going to do their job, right? But if your shoes hurt you, that can be a major issue. You get blisters, you can get stone bruising. They're just simply uncomfortable, and it can make or break your entire trip. Whether or not you have good footwear or not. And again, a lot of us learn that the hard way. You buy a pair of shoes, they don't fit properly, or they're not the appropriate type of footwear for what you're doing. And we're all different. You see people that can have a great big backpack on and do it in trail runners, and then you see other folks with the same trail, same pack, and they need a great big heavy duty pair of full shank hiking boots. And they're not, it's not right or wrong, it's just learning your body, learning what you're capable of. And starting at a not just like committing to that before you try it out a little bit.
We're looking for gear,
Mhm.
and we have the option to go to a box store,
Sure.
or to go to here,
Sure.
or an outdoor store.
Yep.
So
I'm sure you've
Why?
heard this. It's
why would you
I
Oh,
should
yeah.
get it cheaper somewhere else. Why would I
This is
spend that money?
my bread and butter right here every day, right? Why should I come to the Pack Rat instead of going to any online site, Backcountry or whomever, or
Amazon.
going to Amazon. I mean, anything, right? You put your phone out of your pocket and order anything you want right now. or like you say, going into a bot shop or something like that. And the answer to me is real simple. It's people. It's building a relationship with someone that you trust. At the end of the day, I tell my employees all the time, like, look, you can talk somebody out of purchasing something if it's not the right product for them. That's fine, because what is more important to me is that at the end of the day, that person trusts that you actually gave them real valuable advice, and they feel like you were honest with them. And then we are trying to develop a relationship with a long-term customer. Sure, I could, you come in looking for this jacket because you read about it on a website and it sounds real cool, and it's $200 or whatever. But at the end of the day, if I have a conversation and you start telling me about what you've already got, and I'm like, I think you're good. I think for what you're doing, what you've already got is good. You could save that money and put it into another piece of equipment that might be more valuable to you. And that's not, me standing here trying to tell you what to do. That's just me, hopefully giving you a different perspective, another way to consider it. And sometimes, again, it's my opinion. You can take it or leave it, right? But I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to give you more information so that you can make a judgment call based on what the value of something is. It's a bit of a catch-22 because I need to sell things in order to make a living to raise my family. But at the same time, I'm not going to do that at the expense of just selling people things that they don't really need. Anytime you have a technical shop like this, there's always a bit of a stigma that, like, well, everything they carry is expensive or overpriced. And sure, in many cases it is expensive because it's quite good quality. And yeah, you pay a lot more for it. But when you start thinking about how much that it costs you to own that product over the course of its lifetime, versus how many, if I bought, brand X that was a fraction of the price, well, how many of those brand X ones do you have to buy over the time? It ends up costing you more. And it didn't perform as well, right? When you're out in the field. So, and that's not always the case. Sometimes it does make more sense to buy the less expensive one, simply because you're not going to use it often enough to justify it. So everyone's different.
The 10 essentials, we've heard about that. What are they and why are they important?
That's a great question, and I have read since I was a kid probably about that, and you'll see lots of variations within the 10 essentials, depending upon what's the point of the book. Is it a survival book? Is it a bushcraft book? Is it a how-to-go backpacking book? That list of 10 ends up being a list of 30, depending upon what it is. And so what I would say is that don't get hung up on 10, first of all. It's a collection of items that make sense for you, and experience will play a big role in that, because the more knowledge you have, potentially the less of those things ultimately that you will need. Sure. And so, knowledge is power. It's not just having it with you, but it's your understanding of how it works, how to use it. And, for instance, a classic one would be like a space blanket or a Mylar emergency blanket. That's often an item that you'll see on a 10 essentials list. And that's great, but like, did you even take it out of the box and look at it? And do you know what it is that you've got? A fire starter is another excellent example of one that, like, people hear that, oh, I need a fire starter, awesome, take it off the shelf, take it out of the package, put it in the backpack. But do you know how it works? Do you know if it's any good? Hopefully, if you bought it from a reputable shop, they're trying to carry a product that they know is going to perform well. But, who knows?
Not only have it, but know how to use it.
Yeah, you've got to go home and open that stuff up and test it and make sure, because it might break the first time you use it. It's happened to me before. I got something and tried it, and it was supposed to be the best thing ever, and it didn't do what it said it was supposed to do. And I don't want to find that out when I need it right now, right, because I'm freezing and I either need to make a fire or I need that space blanket not to rip into shreds as soon as I pull it out, Right. And to me, it's less about, know, a specific set of items than it is like having the right kit for the right trip. Because the gear I'm going to take with me in the mountains is different than the desert, is different than the paddling trip, right? It changes every time. There's certainly a lot of crossover. You know, you need adequate layers, you need a way to stay warm. I'm always going to take a cutting tool with me. You know, there's a lot of things that are going to go over, but
Map and compass?
yeah, I mean, navigation equipment's always going to be part of that, sure. I mean, even on a simple local trail, I think that even though you may not need navigation equipment because you're on, like, let's pick a trail like Lost Valley. That's a local trail, an hour from here, it's short. It's very difficult to get lost. You're in the bottom of the valley. That's about as beaten a trail as you could ever hope to walk on. But I think what a lot of people miss out on by not choosing to take a map is that there's a great deal that you can learn about the map, about your surroundings, and about how those two things work together with one another that will be of more value to you later when you're actually in a situation where the trail isn't as defined. And so learning to sort of wrap your head around, you know, the two-dimensional versus the three-dimensional has a great deal of value in it. And even though you don't necessarily need it, if you'll just, you know, it doesn't take a lot of time, you can just pull it out and glance at it multiple times throughout the day. It helps a lot.
And it's a skill set that you have to practice.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, learning to read a map is not unlike trying to learn a foreign language or something like that. I mean, you're only going to be as good at it as the amount of time that you put into it.
I know one of the backpacking clinics I went with Charlie. We were pull out her map and she's like, okay, well, here's these mountains here and they're right there. And I looked at the map and I looked at the mountains and I said, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't see
Right.
here what she saw there.
Right.
And I think that just comes with experience and with practice.
It does in training. I mean, it takes training in order to do it. And there's really no substitute for that. I mean, you can't just do something the same way over and over again and hope that one day you're going to have an epiphany, right? Just by staring at it and looking up,
Or you
like
do
you
it
have
3
to.
times and then go,
Right.
okay, that's it, I got it.
You've got to learn the relationship between the contour lines and how those represent, you know, the 3D world around us.
We can talk about maps, but I need to wrap up the 10 essentials real quick. I think the basic principle of them is it'll be everything you need to survive for 24 hours.
Yeah,
for something to happen.
yeah, something like that, or you see like a 36-hour kit or something like that. You know, and again, I think there's a guy that he's a friend of mine who I've gotten to know pretty well. His name's Dave Canterbury, and he's got a YouTube site. And he doesn't do 10 essentials; he does 5 C's and 10 C's. And yeah, you should check that out if you haven't got a chance. But his is more on the sort of survival and bushcraft world a little bit, rather than like ultralight hiking or anything like that. But there's a lot of crossover, so there's different ways to think about it. And I wouldn't necessarily, again, get hung up on this guy said this or this woman said that, or you know, it's try stuff, learn, and figure out what's going to work best for you. Because I might take certain 10 things, but it may be a little bit different for you.
My 10 things would be 20.
Right. I mean, and it's okay. It's not wrong to a point, right? Like, we can overload ourselves. I mean, and again, not to get off subject, but the backpacker's worst phrase you can say is, well, I'll take this just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case you want to get away from that immediately.
How was it just in case?
Yeah, everybody is. When you start out, that's what you do. Oh, I'll take this just in case, right? And because you don't know what you may need or not. It takes time and experience in order to figure out those things that you may need or not need. At the end of the day, we need to have products with us, smart clothing layering system, and a smart sleeping system, insulation and shelter that are going to help us maintain body core 10. That's the first thing that we need. For some people, that might be 10 items. For some people, that might be 4. For some people, that might be 20, right? It's different. But as long as you meet those criteria, that's what matters. Sure.
We tell people they should have a map. Take a map with them. Somebody's going to say, why should I buy a map? I don't even know how to read a map.
Sure.
What do we say to those people?
Yeah, what should you say to that? Well, again, most of us are walking around with GPS in our pocket, right? That's great. I think there's a lot of value in technology. Technology can be a wonderful tool. It can get you out of trouble. The technology can break. Technology is not necessarily always the most robust. You can drop your phone and shatter the screen. It can die because you don't have power, right?
Drop in the creek.
Yeah, you can get it wet and it can die on you. So there's a number of reasons why old school skills still have a lot of merit and value, and learning how to read a map is one of those, because a map doesn't run on batteries, right? It's always going to be there.
I've seen some maps that look like they were drawn on the back of a napkin.
Yeah, oh yeah, map is a broad term for a lot of things. I would, if we're talking about hiking or any type of backcountry travel, I would say a topographical map, and I would usually say get the most detailed scale that you can. A minimum of 1 to 100,000. 1 to 24 is better.